This is Introduction to Distance, Velocity, and Time. For this first introduction, I would perhaps set up a race for the children. And then afterwards, we would talk about different information that they could have obtained from the race. The first being that we could talk about the time that it took them to run the course. So this would be introduced as the time that it took for them to finish the race course. The second thing that we could talk about was the distance that they ran. And then the third thing that we could discover together would be how fast they ran the race, or the speed at which they ran. And we're going to call that velocity. We can use algebraic terms for these. Time can be represented with t. Distance can be represented with d. And velocity can be represented with v. Now that I have introduced these new terms to the students, I can provide them with an example that we can work through to learn more about each term. The example that I would provide for the students is if a plane travels 700 miles per hour, how far will it travel in 3 hours? So I would ask the students, what is known about this equation? What do we know so far? We know the velocity, 700 miles per hour. So we're going to use our term velocity, also our algebraic expression of v, and then we know that the velocity is 700 miles per hour. We also know that our time is 3 hours. So again, we have time, the abbreviation t, and that is 3 hours. So then we have the question, what is wanted? What are we trying to figure out? Our term that is left is distance. So we are trying to figure out how many miles our plane was able to travel in the given time of 3 hours. So the students will recognize that this is going to be a multiplication problem. We know the velocity is 700. And we know that we had 3 hours for our time. So we're going to multiply 700 3 times. And that equals 2100, or 2,100. So if a plane travels at 700 miles per hour, and it travels for 3 hours, its total distance is 2,100 miles.